Welcome to Empowered by AI. I'm Michelle Nutzi Silva. This podcast is for women building what's next and using AI with intention. In Season 6, you'll hear from founders, educators, creatives, and builders who are actually using AI to think better, work smarter, and move with intention. We're learning from conversations about readiness, literacy, and taking action, because every episode gives you ideas you can use immediately. Let's get into it.
All right, Kimberly, we are going to dive in. I want to start off by giving you an opportunity to introduce yourself to everyone. So let's hear a little bit about you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. So, hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Inez Mays. I demystify AI and technology for service-based businesses. I do so in a way that delivers a million aha moments so that everybody feels empowered to use technology.
I love it. I love it. And so many times people want to just tackle this from a rather shallow point of view, right? The
Mhm.
tools and but teams often just get stuck with just the tools and then they get no support or they get support for an hour from a rep because it came with the
Mhm.
purchase. So where does that break first? Do you feel like that's a decision making thing? Is that a trust thing or is it skill building?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I also think it is a decision-making thing. So when we're talking about using AI, it can mean many things to many different people. Most of the people I come across who use AI use it as a glorified search and answer engine or as a glorified copywriting machine. Now, there's nothing wrong with those use cases, but I feel like when you're forcing or when you've made a decision to have your team use AI, you have to decide what are the use cases and what result do you want to get out of it. And then you also have to read the room and see who's tech adverse. You'll have like tech adverse people, you'll have people who are very tech forward, and you have people with deep concerns. There are concerns about deep fakes, hallucinations, accuracy, bias. And I think too that any decision maker should take that into account and saying, okay, how do we mitigate against everything that people are concerned about? How do we quell some of their fears and concerns? And then how do we measure the effectiveness of using these things and what are they going to be used for? So I think it's a little bit of all three, to be honest.
Mhm. Yeah. And I know there are some people who actually they feel like they're being asked to learn on their own time, right? There's no clarity for them. So how do you refrain AI so it feels more like an amplification of what humans are already doing as opposed to unpaid labor?
Yeah, and I think in any role, in any team, and just in life in general, nothing is static. And it's just the truth. Like AI is definitely a part of it. I know it's the topic of today's conversation, but there always has to be development within your role and as a human. You're never going to come to a place where you have stopped developing and all you need to know because jobs aren't permanent. Even if you run your own business, you have to learn, you have to grow, you have to expand. So I would reframe it as think as unpaid labor is just the cost of just being a professional in this society. You do need to learn things, and some of those things you need to skills you need to pick up can be uncomfortable at first. But I think one of the ways that I teach AI is I like to make it fun. I don't think that people should start off with their most important use case. So, say if you had an important report that you needed to submit, right? You wouldn't use AI for the first time to put together that report or that dashboard or that flow chart to make that big decision. Why? Because you're building a plane as you fly it. And that's very overwhelming, intimidating, and if you don't get the output you want, guess what? You're going to just throw that tool out the window. You're going to say, AI doesn't work. I prompted this. It didn't give me a good result. It sounded generic. A lot of people pay attention to how could sound like them or not sound like them. So I say, let's start off with no use case at all. Let's have a little bit of fun. And I ran workshops where I literally helped people put together a recipe and using whatever's in their fridge or plan a vacation or write a poem or a song. something so that people can get used to interacting with a large language model and get to know different types of models, whether it's a reasoning model, just the regular fast model. A lot of times people only have access to the free version, and that's their first entry point into using a large language model. So I say, let's lower the stakes and lower the temperature so that people can really feel comfortable going back and forth, refining their prompts, using different prompt frameworks if they want to do that, and to see what they get so that it's not something that they have to do on top of the mountainous things that they're already doing.
And you describe AI as a thought partner. And so I
Mm-hmm.
want to tease out what that means for you, because a lot of people will say that, but they have very different definitions. So, what's AI doing in that relationship that a human can't do on their own? And where do you see humans coming in for control?
Yeah, and I like to tell people like AI isn't smarter than you, it just has access to more information. And in putting it that way also again lowers the temperature. It doesn't make people feel like they're replaceable or expendable. But what it does is saying, okay, I have a tool now that can parse through and synthesize information for me faster than I can do on my own. The human is still in charge of vetting the information, vetting the outputs, providing quality inputs to it, and then being able to use it appropriately back and forth as needed. So when I say a thought partner, I really mean like a co-pilot, right? The person is still in control, the human's still in control. And one of the ways that I like to use it as a thought partner, and I can demo this later, is by doing a lot of market research, voice of customer, client avatars, and things like that, putting in assumptions and then asking it, hey, are there any assumptions that I've made about X, Y, and Z that I haven't thought of? What are my blind spots? What questions do you have for me based on the role and the task that I've given you? Is there anything that's unclear? Because we live in our own heads, we have our own biases, our own ways of thinking. And I think what a large language model can do, what AI can do, is help us think a little differently, help us organize our the chaos in our mind a lot more effectively. And that's what I mean by thought partner. So it's not just something where you say, all right, let me create a landing page for my program, give me some copy, or what is, or you googling something. It's not what it's used for. It's not what it should be used for. You can use it for that, but you shouldn't. So that's what I mean by thought partner, just really an assistant when you need one.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you see considerations like ethics, bias, environmental impacts? How do you see that change how you design what you're doing with AI?
Yeah, so understanding too is the company behind certain models. And I'm not going to be specific on which one I will never ever use, just understanding that every large language model, every system is trained on data. It's good, but it's excellent, but it's not imperfect. It's not perfect, it's imperfect. It doesn't have there's going to be some biases there. For example, I remember like image generation where I would always have to specify specific age or specific race because there are defaults. Now that's not a bad thing, but there are biases when in the data too, where you're going to get data from or outputs from a particular point of view. You have to look out for hallucinations. You have to look out for things that could potentially be harmful depending on the scenario and the situation that you are working in. So just being mindful of that, being mindful that it can make mistakes. Everything needs to be vetted. And then you can also use different models to vet its own output. Are there any assumptions made in this output? Is there anything that's unclear? Or I'm working with these types of people, I'm working with this audience, or it's for this use case. Is there anything in this output that can cause potential or harm? Just being mindful of that because, again, it's great, but it's not perfect.
Understatement of the year.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's get into some fun stuff here. Through a real moment where you used AI, whether it was for research or even just iterating, Was the input? What did AI surface that surprised you? How does it help you change your thinking? You can model this if you feel like that we can replicate on our own, or we can just discuss it.
Yeah, I can definitely discuss it. So I think that one of the most underused products, in my opinion, is Perplexity.
Mm.
I love Perplexity so much. I love research. I love data. I love sources. I love just the amalgamation of just content in general. And I'd rather get that than get output, get creative with it. So, one of the things I found that was really surprising and great to me is market research. Specifically, one of the things that I teach is client avatar. When you're launching a service or a project or program or whatever, you need to understand the needs and pain points of your audience, your target market. Also, doing competitive analysis. So, one of the things that I do in Perplexity is you can sync it up to your Google Drive, or you can just put your documents in it, just a RAG model or retrieval augmented generation. So you can give it your data, your business plan, or whatever the case may be. And you can say, okay, now based on this, you find my competitors, find people who are doing stuff in the same space. And then you can prompt a little bit better than that. Tell me why you've picked it. You can ask it to tell it why you picked it. And then I have an avatar template where I say, okay, give me demographic information and more importantly, psychographic information. So I'll say, okay, where does my audience usually spend their time online? What are their fears about a particular thing? And then cite your sources. Always click and Perplexity does a really good job of citing its sources so you can click and verify where that information came from. And I remember back in business school where I would have to do this like manually. This was back in, I think, 2020, not 2020, I'm sorry, 2012. It was a really long time ago. I'd be in the library and we'd have access to all of these research and marketing databases where I would have to go and sift through this information, read to find the stat or to find the piece of information I wanted. I'd even have to resort to microfilm at one time. So I'm just saying to your
Remember all
listeners,
that?
you remember all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we have this in our pocket. Like before, we'd have to go to a library and then put money on a card to print stuff out or to print out the film and return it to the library. And so now, we have access to use Perplexity and other tools like that. And I can definitely demo this. One of the things that really stood out to me too is the Perplexity Labs. I know that we talked about just one use case. I have 10, but I'm just going to stick to the Perplexity one right now. But that was one of the ones that I highly recommend for anybody who's in a research space or even in just entrepreneurial space who needs fast access to data.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's make this actionable, right? So
Yes.
if a listener has as this example in 20 minutes, what's something they can try this week?
Yeah. Something they can try this week is I'm going to give you like 3 examples, like beginner, intermediate, advanced, because I might recommend something and somebody may say, I don't have a business or I'm not doing research or I'm just getting started and I don't know anything and I'm scared. So if you are a beginner, as of this recording, we have a major snowstorm coming our way. So if you want to plan a couple of meals, you can say, all right, you can open up ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever it is that you fancy, and say, I have these 5 ingredients in my refrigerator, and I need to prepare 5 days of meals, and I want to buy some ingredients from the supermarket. What can I make with the things that I already have in my refrigerator? Plus, what do I need to go and buy? Please return it in this format. 3 recipes and then the new items by shopping aisle or something like that. And that's a great use case for a beginner because it's low stakes, it's fun, and it's practical. Now, for the intermediate ones, people who have a business and are like, okay, I already know how to prompt for stuff like that. You can give me something real. I would say do some voice of customer analysis on maybe something you want to launch or something that's launched already. So you can take your landing page, your sales page, some of your content, maybe the details of your offer, and you can run it through a reasoning model. You can run it through ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever it is you fancy. You can say, here is my program, product, whatever, and here's my target audience. Given this, what are some of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of this particular product? You can also say, give me 3 competitors and 3, or maybe like their unique selling proposition. And then also maybe a gap analysis. What gaps in the market do you see this product that I have fulfilling that nobody else is doing, or something like that, right? So you can ask it very intelligent questions. You can ask it to explain its reasoning. And then when you see the model thinking, you can actually click on it, and then you can understand its chain of thought that you can plan your next prompt better. And I would say that's intermediate/advanced. And that's something I think anybody can do within minutes. So if you have something that you're working on, you can always ask, hey, what might I be overlooking here? What can I add to it? Is anything unclear? So asking it to ask you questions is what's really going to help.
Yes. For women navigating AI heavy workplaces, they worry about being replaced or overlooked. What's a mindset that you think matters more than anything else right now?
Yeah. So I think women in tech, or women surrounded by tech, like it can be a very overwhelming experience, because I've been in that space too for over a decade, 15 years, where I was actually a developer, single, the only female in a certain department. So I get it. I would say the mindset is you belong. Like every day, you belong, you belong. And I like to think of the visual of the Kool-Aid man kicking the wall. Oh, yeah, I'm here. That's how you have to be, because you don't have to play small. You don't have to apologize for not understanding something. Go ahead and ask your questions, give your thoughts, give your opinions, and really just be involved, be present. And a lot of people will posture themselves as thinking and knowing more than what they actually know. And I know this from experience, so don't be fooled by that. A lot of people act very confidently, just like ChatGPT, very confident, sometimes very confidently wrong. That's also borrowed its behavior from humans. So don't be overwhelmed and intimidated by that, and just stay curious.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing everything with us. It has been such a pleasure. So, if people want to connect with you, where are they going to touch base with you again?
Yeah. So where I live and thrive is on LinkedIn. So you can just look me up by 3 names, Kimberly Inez Mays on LinkedIn. I should pop up there. That's the best place to get in touch with me, because I could give my email address, but emails, or I check it regularly. But if you really want to get in touch with me, it'll be LinkedIn. And yeah, just say hello, connect with me, and I always have something going on.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
You've been listening to Empowered by AI, and I'm your host, Michelle Muncy Silva. If something from this episode clicked, don't let it stop here. Take one idea and try it out this week. And if you want to go deeper, head over to the Empowered by AI, the Slay Effect YouTube channel, where you can watch demos and walkthroughs from our guests today and so many others. Like, subscribe, and join us there so you don't miss out on what's coming next. All the links and resources are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.